Good morning. So today we're going to be completing lesson number 37, which is solving for angle measures with parallel lines cut by a transversal. So I'd like you to take a look at the do now, pause this video, and try to solve, and come back when you have your answer. So looking at the do now, we need to solve our multi-step equation. And remember, to help you, you could have used don't call me after midnight. The first thing we did was distributed. So I distributed the -3 and the 8. And I ended up with -3x plus 3 plus 8x minus 24 equals 6x plus 7 minus 5x. Then the C tells me next I need to look to combine like terms. So I look on the left side of my equation. And I combine my -3x and my +8 to give me a 5x. Then my +3 and my -24 give me a -21. I look on the right side and I combine 6x and -5x to give me a 1x. Then I have my +7. Then the M tells us we're going to move our variables to one side. So I subtract 1x on each side, and I get 4x minus 21 equals 7. Then I need to either add or subtract, and I add 21 on both sides. I get 4x equals 28, then multiply or divide. And in this case, I'm dividing by 4 on both sides. I get x equals 7. So let's take a look at example number 1. We're going to use the diagram to answer the following questions. So if I look here, I have parallel lines there that are cut by a transversal. So they're asking, what is the angle relationship you see in this diagram? So which vocabulary word can describe the 3x and the 75? Well, I noticed there that these are directly across from each other. And what types of angles are directly across from each other? Those are vertical angles. And we know that vertical angles are congruent or equal to one another. So if the 3x and the 75 are vertical, then 3x must be equal to 75. So how will we set up our equation to solve? Well, we basically did here. We know that the 3x needs to be equal or the same as the 75. Now let's solve for x. So here I just need to divide by 3 on each side, and I end up with x equals 25. So then, how do we use the value of x to solve for the missing angle measurement? Well, x is 25, but this angle is 3x here. If x is 25, everywhere I see x, I can just replace it with that 25. So this becomes 3 times 25, which just gives me 75 degrees. So this angle of 3x is 75 degrees. And to check, these should be equal. So 75 degrees equals 75 degrees, so you know you did it correctly. So question number 2, we want to figure out what the angle relationship is. Well, what is the relationship between these two angles here? Well, I look here, it's this angle and this angle. Those two angles are alternate interior. And what do we know about alternate interior angles? Well, we know alternate interior angles are congruent or equal. So 3x plus 10 must be equal to 5x minus 10. So then what would our equation be to solve here? Well, I could take the 3x minus 10 then and set it equal to the 5x minus 10. And I apologize, that's 3x plus 10. And then I need to solve for x. So here, I need to get the variables on both sides. So I'm going to subtract 3x on both sides. So then I have 10 equals 2x minus 10. I need to add 10 on both sides. I get 2x equals 20. Then I'm going to divide by 2 on each side. And I get x equals, I don't really have room down there, 10. So now if x equals 10, I need to solve for the measurement of the missing angles. Here I have two angles. I have the 3x plus 10. And I have 5x minus 10 that I need to solve for. Well, how do I solve for these? If I know x equals 10, everywhere I see x, I can replace it with that 10. So this then becomes 3 times 10 plus 10. And 3 times 10 is 30 plus 10, which gives me 40 degrees. So this angle would be 40 degrees. Then I have 5x minus 10, which becomes 5 times 10 minus 10. And 5 times 10 is 50 minus 10, which gives me 40 degrees. And we said that alternate interior angles are equal, so this is 40, and the other angle is 40, so we know that we did it correctly. Let's look at example number 3. So we're going to figure out first, what is the angle relationship that we see there? So I noticed that both of these angles are on the exterior of the parallel lines. They're also on opposite sides, so these are alternate exterior angles. And we know that alternate exterior angles are congruent or equal. So that means that these must be equal to each other. So I need to set up my equation here. So I'm going to take the first angle, x plus 10, and it must be equal to the second angle measure, 4x minus 20. And then I need to solve. So I'm going to subtract my x, or my 1x, on both sides, and I'll have 10 equals 3x minus 20. Then I'm going to add 20 on both sides. I get 3x equals 30. I'm going to divide by 3, and I end up with x equals 10. Now my angles, I need to solve for those measurements next. So my first angle is x plus 10, and the next angle is 4x minus 20. If I found out that x equals 10, everywhere I see x, I can replace it with that 10. So this then becomes, instead of x, it's 10 plus 10, which gives me 20 degrees. So this angle is 20 degrees. Then I have 4x minus 20, which is 4 times 10 minus 20. 4 times 10 is 40. And 40 minus 20 gives me 20 degrees. So this angle is 20 degrees. And they're both 20 degrees, which is great because we know alternate exterior angles have the same measure. So now looking at example 4, we need to look at these angles to determine what is the angle relationship between them. Well, if we take a look here, we notice that if I picked up this set of angles and dropped it on top of this one, they would have the same exact place. So they would be one on top of the other. So that means that these angles are corresponding. And we know that corresponding angles are congruent, or have the same measure. They are equal. So I would need to take the first angle in order to set up an equation. And it must be equal to the second measure, which is 29. We need to solve for x now. I'm going to subtract 27 on both sides. And I end up with 3x equals 102. Then I'm going to divide by 3. And I get x equals 34. So that's what x equals, but I need to solve for the missing angle. So I have 3x plus 27. And everywhere I see x, I'm going to replace it with that 34. So this then becomes 3 times 34 plus 27. And when I do 3 times 34, I get 102 plus 27. And 102 plus 27 gives me 129 degrees. And these are corresponding, so they should be equal. So 129 equals 129. So I know that I did this correctly. So lastly, let's look at example number 5. And look at this diagram. Look at these two angles. You notice these two angles do not fall under any of the vocabulary that we have learned. So there are only two options that we talked about when we're using parallel lines cut by a transversal. The angles are either equal or supplementary. These two angles, since they're not equal, they're not any of those vocabulary words that we learned, it means that they are supplementary. And remember, supplementary means they need to add to 180. So here I'm going to add these two together then. So I need to add. So I have 20x plus 5, and I'm adding it to the second angle, 24x minus 1, and they need to equal 180. Now I'm going to solve. So in order to solve here, we need to combine our like terms. And I'm going to add my 20x and my 24x. And I'm going to get 44x. Then my 5 and my -1 give me a positive 4 equals 180. I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. And I get 44x equals 176. Then I'm going to divide by 44 on each side. And I get x equals 4. Now we need to solve for the measurements of the missing angles. Well, the first angle is 20x plus 5, and the second angle is 24x minus 1. If x equals 4, everywhere I see x, I'm going to replace it with that 4. So this then becomes 20 times 4 plus 5, and 20 times 4 is 80, and 80 plus 5 gives me 85 degrees. So that first angle here is 85 degrees. Then next I have 24 times 4 minus 1. And 24 times 4 gives me 96 minus 1, which gives me a 95 degrees. Now these two aren't equal, but remember, they're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be supplementary. So when I add these two, 85 and 95, I should get 180. And when I add them, I do get 180 degrees. So I know that I did that correctly. If you have any questions, please comment on this video or on the Google Classroom and complete practice worksheet number 37.